Welcome to Reddit Echoes, where real-life stories are told by the people who lived them. These aren't just ordinary tales, they're raw, emotional experiences filled with pain, betrayal, tough choices, and moments that make you stop and ask yourself, what would I do if it were me? In today's video, you'll hear stories about love, betrayal, hidden financial secrets, and the kinds of life-altering decisions that anyone could face. So sit back, listen closely, and reflect. Story 1. My dad accidentally sent me a sext and my mom's weird secret came out. I honestly don't even know where to begin. I'm still confused, uncomfortable, and kind of shocked about what happened with my dad. I'm a 28-year-old woman and, well, I don't think anyone ever expects to get a sexually suggestive message from their own biological father, right? But that's exactly what happened. One day I got a text from my dad's phone. The message read something along the lines of, "Can't wait to get that ass again, Kelly." I froze. My face flushed red. I figured he must have meant to send that to someone else, maybe a girlfriend or his wife. But here's the thing. My mom's name isn't Kelly. Kelly is actually the name of my aunt, my mom's sister. So I texted back, "Dad, you sent this to the wrong person. Mom's not Kelly." And my dad replied almost instantly, "Oh, your mom sometimes role plays as Kelly over text. It's not an affair or anything." I was stunned. Role play. What the actual hell? He said it was just a game they do to spice things up. But I didn't know how to feel. I was grossed out, confused, borderline laughing, and also kind of wanted to run away from my entire life. So I asked my mom about it. And of course, she denied the whole thing. She said Dad was just being extra, like it was some kind of joke. But the truth is, a few days later, the tension in the house was undeniable. My parents started arguing more. They weren't as relaxed or normal around each other as before. And me, I was caught in the middle. I didn't know whose side to be on. I felt kind of betrayed, not just by my dad, but by my mom too. Should I tell someone? Should I talk to my mom again? Or should I just stay silent and let it pass? Every time I think about that message, I want to laugh and cry at the same time. Laugh because my parents' spice things up tactics are ridiculously absurd. Cry because the whole thing makes me feel so uneasy and emotionally messed up. I know this isn't the kind of story people usually want to hear, and it's definitely not something most people go through. But if you've ever been through something bizarre like this, just know you're not alone. And if you're a parent, please just remember, these role-play games, no matter how harmless you think they are, might end up seriously confusing or hurting the people around you. Thanks for listening to my story. Story 2. My trans sister-in-law secretly tried on my wife's lingerie when boundaries were broken. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I've been married to my amazing wife for a few years now. Our family includes one very unique member, my wife's sister-in-law, a 22-year-old trans woman. Our family has always been supportive of her, and so have I. But something happened that left me completely shocked and confused. Part 1. The birthday party and the mysterious disappearance. For my mother's birthday, we decided to throw a small party at home. Family and friends were all there, and my sister-in-law came too. In the past, whenever she came to these gatherings, she'd often disappear for stretches of time, slipping away from the crowd and vanishing somewhere in the house. We always assumed she was just introverted, maybe off playing with the dog or watching TV alone. But on this birthday night, right before we lit the candles, she vanished again. I decided to go find her. Part 2. The discovery in my wife's bedroom. I went upstairs and noticed that the door to our bedroom, normally very private and always locked, was slightly ajar. The light inside was still on. I thought maybe I had forgotten to lock the door or turn off the light, so I stepped in to check. But the moment I opened my wife's wardrobe, I was floored. There she was, my sister-in-law, trying on my wife's lingerie. Lacy bras, panties, bright-colored sets, all being tried on, then tossed to the floor. She turned around, clearly startled when she saw me standing there. Part 3. A storm of emotions and silence. I didn't say much, just gently told her that everyone was waiting to blow out the candles and she should come downstairs. She quietly left the room, her face pale as a ghost. I stood there overwhelmed by a storm of emotions, shock, discomfort, a hint of fear, and most of all, a deep sense of violation. My wife takes privacy very seriously, especially when it comes to our bedroom. We always lock our door when we're not home. What my sister-in-law did felt like she had crossed the last sacred boundary. Part 4. Her explanation and apology. After the party, she sent me several texts apologizing and explaining herself. She said she was going through a tough time trying to adjust to her new identity as a trans woman. She felt pressured, lonely, and emotionally overwhelmed. Trying on my wife's lingerie, she said, was her way of escaping or seeking comfort. Still, the incident created a wave of tension in the family, especially with my wife, who felt deeply hurt and violated. Part 5. My wife's reaction and our decision to confront it. My wife was devastated when I told her what had happened. She even cried. She said it felt like someone had broken in and stolen her most sacred sense of privacy. We decided to throw away all the lingerie that had been touched. Then we sat down and had some long, heartfelt conversations to process everything. Eventually, we agreed it was time to have a serious and honest talk with my sister-in-law. We needed to set clear boundaries and find a healthy way forward. Part 6. Lessons and reflections. I know some people might say, what's the big deal? It's just underwear. Sisters share clothes all the time. But to us, this was about respect and boundaries. Every family has a different understanding of intimacy and what's acceptable. For us, our bedroom and our lingerie are deeply personal and off-limits. This experience taught me a lot about the importance of communication, empathy, and respecting personal space, especially when it involves family members who are navigating gender transition and identity struggles. Conclusion. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation, or you have a loved one going through a difficult time, just remember patience, empathy, and clear personal boundaries are essential for maintaining peace and trust in a family. Thanks for listening. Story 3. Left alone, while seriously ill, found out. My husband was cheating and everything fell apart. Hi everyone, my name is Magali. I'm 28 years old. I've been married for 3 years to my husband who's 32, and we have a 1-year-old daughter together. I used to believe I could count on him when it really mattered, but last week completely shattered that belief. For a few days, I had been feeling tired and unwell. My body was weak. I felt nauseous, and something just didn't feel right. Then one morning, everything got worse. I woke up with a high fever, chills, full body pain, and I was so weak I couldn't even get out of bed. Taking care of my daughter at that point felt absolutely impossible. I called my husband at work and told him I needed him to come home immediately. He said he'd be home soon, but the minutes kept ticking by and he didn't show. At first, he texted things like, just wrapping up work, then got stuck in traffic, and later, on the way, just stopping for gas. Meanwhile, my fever kept climbing, my dizziness worsened, and I could barely stay upright. I told him again this was serious. I needed him now. But deep down, something felt off. So I messaged one of his close co-workers, someone I knew personally, and what I got back made my stomach drop. He hasn't left the office yet. I couldn't believe it. The rage, the fear, the disappointment, it all hit me at once. I called our elderly neighbor, a kind woman who often helps others, and she came right over. She helped me get dressed and took me to the emergency room. The doctor said I had a severe urinary tract infection that had spread to my kidneys and caused my heart rate to spike to dangerous levels. If I'd waited any longer, I could have gone into septic shock, a potentially life-threatening condition. I lay there on the hospital bed, feverish and trembling, hooked up to IV fluids and antibiotics, unable to process anything. By the time my husband finally showed up, it was far too late for forgiveness. He tried to explain, saying he didn't realize how bad it was and just wanted to finish his work first. But I couldn't forget that he lied to me, ignored my pleas while I was hanging by a thread. I asked myself, if he could leave me alone when I was at my most vulnerable, how could I ever trust him again? Was our daughter truly safe in a family like this? My heart was breaking. I eventually recovered and was discharged from the hospital. I asked my parents, who live 4 hours away, to come and help care for our daughter while I regained my strength. I never got a proper apology from him. Just vague excuses about not thinking it was that serious, and even a suggestion that I should have just called the neighbor if it was that bad. I didn't argue, but inside I realized I'd been living in denial. Some people online even speculated I was faking it or exaggerating to justify his absence, but no. In our 5 years together, the only time he ever took me to a hospital was when I gave birth. Every other time I was sick, I was alone. Then one day while he was sleeping, I looked through his phone. I didn't find proof he skipped work, but I found something worse: flirty messages to multiple women on Tinder. He'd been chatting for months. He even sent TikToks to friends, laughing and having fun while I was struggling to stand upright in our home. He claimed his boss didn't let him leave work, but I checked, there were no texts to any supervisor, no discussions about my illness. Nothing. I started to realize he lied about everything. I didn't have the energy to confront him. I just left. I had ignored the red flags, the broken promises, the tiny lies that added up. I was naive enough to believe he'd be there when I needed him most. I didn't tell him I was leaving, not until I was ready. Just like he never told me he wasn't coming home when I needed him the most. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Could you forgive and trust someone who abandoned you when your life was on the line? I couldn't. And now I've contacted a lawyer. I'm preparing for a new life. This divorce might be painful, but I know it's necessary for me and for my daughter. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've been through something similar, feel free to share it. Let others know they're not alone. And if you want to hear more real-life drama like this, don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Echoes. Story 4. The Burden of a Secret and the Collapse of a Marriage. When debt reaches nearly $100,000, I'm a 32-year-old woman, and I've been married to my husband for almost 17 years. We've been together for 20. When we started dating, I knew he had issues with money, and it was a sensitive topic for him. So a few years ago, I took over managing our finances and paying the bills. I thought it would ease his stress and help him focus on work. But things got out of control fast. I started losing track of our credit cards, no-interest loans, and our ability to keep up with payments. My credit score began to plummet, and the guilt of betraying his trust consumed me. I turned to shopping expensive hobbies and reckless spending as a way to cope with my anxiety and depression. Losing my mom was a huge blow, too. We had to cover medical expenses, travel costs to take care of her. It all added to the financial pressure. I know none of that justifies lying to my husband, but I was drowning. Drowning in debt, in shame, in guilt. Eventually, I made the decision to come clean. That next weekend, once the kids were at school, I planned to sit down and tell him everything. I didn't know how he'd react, maybe divorce, maybe permanent loss of trust. I felt like I didn't deserve his trust anymore. I couldn't sleep because of the crushing weight of my mistakes. Part of me wanted to just confess it all. The other part wanted to bury it forever and keep living in denial. When the time finally came, it was even harder than I imagined. My husband has a high-pressure job and travels often. I took over the finances so nothing would get missed while he was gone. That day, I was completely drained, sleep-deprived, and shaking. I was torn between hope and fear. Thankfully, the kids were busy with sports friends' theater rehearsals, so I had a bit of space to face it all. When he came home with a small gift, a fast food snack and a chocolate milkshake, I just broke down. I sobbed uncontrollably right in front of him. He was alarmed, had no idea what was happening. Then I started talking. I told him I loved him, that I was sorry for hiding the truth, and then I laid it all out, every number, every loan, every mistake. I had rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd explain each detail. But once I started, all that planning collapsed. All I could do was cry. He sat there quietly listening. No shouting, no dramatic reaction, just calm. He told me he wanted us to work through this together. He offered to go through all the finances, build a plan, and tackle the debt side by side. But first, he wanted to review the numbers on his own, get a clear picture before we made any decisions as a team. I agreed. I stayed home, did some chores, and waited. About 45 minutes later, he walked out of the house, slammed the door behind him. I didn't follow. He asked for space, and I respected that. But I was freaking out inside. I went to the computer and started reviewing everything myself. At first, I thought the debt was around $60,000, but as I checked more carefully, I found automatic payments I had forgotten about. When I added it all up, the total came out to almost $96,000, and my husband had no idea. Later, he texted me saying he was spending the night at his mom's and would return to pack up some things. He wasn't ready to talk. I understood, and I gave him space. The next day, he came back. I arranged for the kids to run errands so we could speak alone. He admitted he had made a huge mistake by not staying involved in our finances, but he also said he felt betrayed that I had given up and let things spiral without telling him. He decided he would take over managing the money. He started planning solutions like refinancing debt, restructuring, and committed to bi-weekly budget check-ins as a family. He also suggested we go to marriage counseling. I agreed to everything. There was a small sense of relief, but beneath it I still felt sorrow and fear. Things between us are still cold. I regret everything, the damage I've done, the pain I caused. But at least now everything is on the table. No more lies, no more secrets. I know he might never fully forgive me. We may not even make it as a couple. But I did the right thing by owning my mistakes and finally being honest. I'm beginning to realize I might have a serious problem with spending. It's almost like a form of addiction, financial recklessness that I couldn't stop for years. I don't know how long it's been this bad, maybe 20 years of our relationship, maybe just the last few. Either way, this debt is massive and it's caused irreparable harm. Now I know I need strict financial boundaries. I'm even considering moving to a weekly cash allowance system to regain control. I realize this is a touchy subject. People might think a man controlling a woman's finances is a red flag. But honestly, if the roles were reversed, I'd want my husband to be held just as accountable. This whole situation is a wake-up call for anyone who thinks money doesn't affect love or marriage. When finances get out of control, it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's a direct hit to trust, love, and the foundation of your family. Thank you for listening to my honest and painful story. If you enjoy raw, emotional, real-life stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Reddit Echoes so you won't miss the next one. Welcome to Reddit Echoes, where real-life stories are told by the very people who lived them. These aren't just stories, they're raw, emotional experiences filled with heartbreak, betrayal, and moments that make you stop and ask, what would I do if it were me? In today's video, you'll hear powerful stories about love, betrayal, financial secrets, and the difficult decisions that many of us may one day face. So listen closely and reflect.